House's heavily armoured and armed mercenaries burst into the Top's casino with their guns drawn, but as a gunfight quickly ensues, Benny is alerted to their presence and catches on to what House is doing. In the mayhem, he sneaks out undetected and escapes the city of Vegas, travelling all the way to the Legion's main camp, the fort, located across the Colorado River. Unfortunately, also located on top of the Securitron vault in which the Platinum chip will fulfill the first part of its purpose. With little options, Benny decides that he can sneak into the camp undetected. He makes it 5 feet past the gate before he's caught. Of course, there's no chance that anyone could breach the perimeter of the fort and make it to the Securitron vault. The Legion simply has too many soldiers standing guard. Benny is taken prisoner and Caesar, suspicious of the strange chip he was carrying, takes possession of it. All House can do is watch as his plans for greatness crumble before him, but given the stubborn old bastard he is, he still tries in vain to claim his chip. Mercenary after mercenary is sent to the fort to claim the prize, but it's all for naught. The Legion, savage and efficient, halt every attempt, stringing each mercenary to a cross as a warning to the next. Simply no one short of an army has the capacity to break through the Legion's defenses with brute force. So House finally accepts he can do nothing for the time being. As much as he detests the idea, he'll have to suckle up to the NCR. At least he can maneuver his way into a deal with them and possibly salvage the chip later on. If the Legion were to win, he would likely become Caesar's celebratory piñata upon conquering the region. Although those vultures Oliver and Kimball would love to feast on House's rotting remains, they're politicians through and through. If he could aid the rest of the NCR and improve their opinion of him, then Oliver and Kimball wouldn't dare oppose the masses. But he also doesn't want to directly give the NCR more power to use against him, so his only option is to use outside contractors to empower the NCR against its enemies. So House employs masses of mercenaries and sends them all across the region to NCR-controlled facilities to aid however they can, making sure they mention who their employer is. While not the subtlest approach, it works well enough. The Fiends are pushed back and the NCR citizens are now far more protected against criminals. House starts receiving recognition from the NCR for his aid. Employing mercenaries on this scale is costly, but considering House's options, the only problem is now how long until he runs out of caps. The cost of this operation far exceeds House's influx of caps, but he can keep it up at this level for at least a few months. So hopefully the help from him will take pressure off the NCR and allow better coordination against the Legion. Unfortunately, it quickly becomes apparent the Legion isn't going to wait around for the NCR to make a move. South of Vegas, the town of Nipton lies burned and destroyed from the Legion's creeping onslaught. The Legion are moving into NCR territory, sending out patrols, sending out raiding parties. While the Wasteland Wash-ins House hired to aid the NCR could hold their own against the drugged-up fiends and Wasteland bandits, upon the sight of trained legionaries sprinting towards them with spears in hand, many flee. Some stay to fight, but ultimately end up with their entrails on a legionary's spear. It's not too long before only the mercenaries sticking close to the NCR troopers are left. The solution would be just to replace the ones lost. After all, the dead don't ask for payment. Though word quickly spreads of the legionary assaults and the pool of potential employees greatly shrinks. The Legion slowly begins making bolder moves against the NCR and finding more pawns to aid them in their efforts. As if dealing with the Fiends wasn't enough, the Legion now has their sights set on the Great Khans. Making use of their deep hatred for the NCR, the Legion offers to restore the glory of the Great Khans in return for allying with the Legion. Not only does the NCR have to deal with Fiend and Legion harassment on their caravans and patrols, but now another tribe will bolster the Legion during the coming battle for the Dam. With the NCR already spread thin and the Legion advancing, action needs to be taken. House sees an opportunity to help them by sending repair robots to Helios 1 to get it fully operational again. Ambassador Crocker thinks the NCR needs some allies of its own. He confers with Colonel Moore about recruiting local help, and the first target that comes up is the Boomers at Nellis Air Force Base. NCR troopers are sent over to make contact with the Boomers, but all of them are mercilessly killed by the Boomers' artillery. Deciding it's not worth wasting any more resources on this endeavour, the plan is abandoned. The NCR will have to look somewhere else for allies. At least House's repair bots managed to get Helios 1 to working order, allowing more power for NCR facilities. Even with House's limited assistance, the NCR is losing ground day by day. The NCR's insistence to take hold of the entire Mojave makes it easy for the Legion to poke holes in the stretched out defences. House knows the NCR aren't likely to win unless he gives them a greater push, but there's not much he can or wants to do to assist them. Eventually, he has no other choice. While the NCR was trying to find a Legion mole amongst their ranks at Camp McCarran, the mole managed to plant a bomb on the base's monorail, cutting off the NCR's connection to the Strip, and unfortunately the mole still hasn't been caught. As much as House still holds disdain for the NCR, the severance of their connection to the Strip is catastrophic for all parties involved. This will not only mean less profits for House, but more importantly less security, something that's been running dangerously low. The NCR quickly establishes a new route to the Strip on the ground through Freeside, but this comes with the threat of attack from raiders and Freeside thugs. The flow of NCR troopers into the Strip dries up as a result, and House reluctantly accepts that he has to do something about it. House begins by initiating communication with Ambassador Crocker, explaining he's willing to allow the NCR to set up in Freeside free of restrictions, allowing more secure travel to and from the Strip in return for the NCR policing Freeside. Naturally, the imperialist ears of the NCR prick up when they hear of gaining more territory. It's not exactly prime territory, but it will provide them a better foothold in the region, holding the outer area of the city. Crocker accepts the offer and relays the message to the military. House pays the followers of the Apocalypse 10,000 caps to vacate the old Mormon fort so the NCR can establish it as their new base in the area. With the base set up, the NCR begins their campaign to bring the outer city under control. Their local thugs are quickly and effectively arrested or taken down by NCR troopers. The trouble comes from the rest of the locals abiding by the law, but just barely, showing their dislike for the NCR and making it more difficult at every step. Protesting outside the fort, making loud noise at night, stalking NCR troopers. Worst of all is the Kings, a local gang that sees themselves as the law in this part of the city, where the regular citizens would scuttle off if confronted or challenged by the NCR troopers. The Kings would stand ready, refusing to back off. There's also a few instances of supply theft and hit and runs on the NCR. Many suspect the Kings, but nothing can be proven. House sees this tension, and knowing that it'll soon devolve into a turf war, identifies the source of the infection as the gang member Pacer. To solve this, House hires some of the remaining yet-to-be-arrested thugs in the outer city to take him out. Although it takes a few, the hired thugs manage to jump Pacer one night and kill him. In response to this, many Kings are quick to blame the NCR, but witnesses vouch that it was merely a mugging that commonly occurs in this part of the city. With Pacer gone, the Kings mostly lay off harassing the NCR and go back to their usual business. This also has the domino effect of reducing the harassment from the citizens too. Now they don't have the Kings to hide behind. Even if it was gained through fear, the NCR now has a solid grip over Freeside. Yet this does nothing to tighten their grip over the region as a whole. The Legion's assault on the NCR is unrelenting. While House's mercenaries helped thin the Fiends and other bandits, the Legion were quick to fill their places and prove more difficult foes for the NCR troopers. After the years of fighting tooth and nail in the merciless Mojave Desert and with the massive resurgence of their greatest foe, the morale was so low you could almost hear it scrape along the ground behind the NCR troopers unlucky enough to be deployed to the Mojave. Fearing mutiny, the brass needs to find a way to lift spirits in the Mojave. They come up with a presidential visit to Hoover Dam. Of course, it comes with risks too. The Legion may try something, so security will have to be heavy. Once House hears of the president's impending visit, he sends as many mercs as he can afford to the dam. Upon the president's arrival, the security sweeps up and down, seemingly finding nothing, until finally one of the mercs notices someone on the towers lining up a shot, and just in the nick of time blasts them, saving the president. Kimball is hastily rushed out of the area and onto his vertibird when suddenly, boom! The vertibird explodes into pieces, killing everyone in sight, including the president. The head of the NCR decapitated in one swift strike. Although the brass expects this to wreak havoc on troop morale, it almost has the opposite effect. In Kimball's death, he becomes a martyr. All his sins are washed away in the flood of tears for the dead president. He is only remembered as the war hero that died serving the Republic. It doesn't exactly increase morale so much as bloodlust. The event sends the troopers all over the Mojave into a blistering rage, justifying the Mojave campaign as their holy war to rid the earth of the savages that roam the wasteland, of which the Legion is the purest form. savagery incarnate. The NCR troopers on the front lines feel empowered enough to push the assault on the Legion. One by one, platoons of troopers begin attacking encampments and patrols all over the Mojave. It certainly catches the legionaries off guard, not only seeing the NCR show some backbone, but fighting with such ferocity and determination. The Legion had awoken the bear, and now its claws were out, slashing and tearing everything in its path. The forward push turns out successful, at first. The brave troopers cut through the Legion defenses with ease, taking enemies by storm, crashing in with no regard for their own safety. Even with superior numbers and the defensive advantage, the legionaries are crushed by the NCR troopers. More and more troopers advance up to keep the momentum of the assault, but this is where all goes awry. In the NCR's haste, they spread too thin and leave too many openings. The Legion only need to wait for nightfall when the troopers are less alert, and the Legion attack from the shadows. To the credit of the NCR troopers, they all fight bravely and take as many, if not more, legionaries with them to the grave. But the far-spread troopers are completely isolated, broken down, and annihilated. With the devastating loss of most of their best soldiers, the NCR's chances look grim. The NCR has to change their tactics if they hope to hold the area. Taking any territory back from the Legion is no longer viable. The only chance they have is to entrench themselves so deep into the remaining area that the Legion can't push them any further. NCR units start abandoning far-out sites and trapping them as they go. The NCR forces converge to create a closely bound chain linking all of their most important installations. The troops no longer patrol out in the desert, staying completely confined within tightly controlled territory. If the Legion decided to push forward that moment, it's possible they could have caught the still retreating NCR forces off guard, but Lady Luck seemed to be with the NCR for once. For simultaneously, another one of Caesar's enemies had made himself known, a ghost from Caesar's past. Joshua Graham, formerly the Malpace Legate, the Legion's military commander, now only known as the Burned Man. Left for dead by the Legion and forgiven for his sins, he may have served Caesar once, now he only serves God. Caesar sent an army of tribals to destroy his city along with him, yet the Burned Man survived once again, seeking vengeance against those who wrought death and destruction upon his people. To Caesar, Graham was one of the most dangerous things to exist, not because of anything as trivial as skill in combat. Not even Graham could defeat an entire army. No, it was what he represented. Caesar had Graham killed for his failure, or so he thought, but still Graham lived, in merely his continued existence standing as a testament to Caesar's failure and as a match against his straw throne. The image that Caesar built his empire on, the invincible, all-knowing god, Graham threatened it all. The sheer fact that Graham lived put all of Caesar's infallibility, all of his power into question. The Legion was still not self-sustaining. Without their leader to direct them and bind them together, they will fall apart like their Rome of old. Of course, rumors existed all throughout the Legion of the Burned Man, but for Caesar to admit it would be to cast out all doubt and invite his own demise. With Graham having defeated the Whitelegs in Zion and his legend having spread further as a result, Caesar could ignore it no longer. The threat of the Burned Man consumed Caesar, drawing all of his attention. With the NCR in retreat, Caesar's overconfidence dictated that they were no longer the main threat here, so he sends a major part of his army to Zion, barely keeping the illusion of his lie by stating the objective to be the complete and utter destruction of the Sorrows and Dead Horses tribes. And if one unknown bandaged man happened to be among the dead, so be it. This act of desperation by Caesar gives the NCR breathing room, however small it may be. The NCR are able to properly set up a defensive perimeter and drive many of the raiders west. The NCR's lines in the sand are hopefully deep enough this time to hold the region. With the troop losses, they can't afford any more offensives. Even though General Oliver's expansionist tendencies tempt him to assault the Legion as their army is split, the fact that most troops would mutiny before stepping 1 foot out of NCR territory stops him. So once again the NCR can only wait for the Legion to make a move. But perhaps this time the tighter formation of their forces will yield better results. With caps drying up by the day and the NCR losing ground, House needs a new method of income. Now that the NCR has driven most of the bandits west, the mercenaries House hired spend most of their days sitting around doing nothing. there's really no point in keeping them, so he terminates all of their contracts, creating a market of jobless mercs. Simultaneously, House creates a private military company. Hiding the fact that he created it, all the mercs are offered contracts, and western settlements are offered protection from the influx of bandits that have been harassing them. Business is slow at first, as the mercenaries are still the wasteland walk-ins that barely rank above bandits, so House makes the choice to invest in some of them. Now that his pool of caps is at least draining slower, he pulls the best performing mercs back to the new company building in Freeside and hires some ex-NCR military personnel to train them. He also pays people around Freeside to complain about the thugs at the Silver Rush being a danger to the people. As he predicted, the NCR eventually comes to him to ask for help in breaking up their operation. House graciously accepts, of course, and some of the Securitrons raid the Silver Rush along with NCR troopers, confiscating all equipment deemed to be above civilian needs. And all this equipment mysteriously goes missing soon after, only to wind up in the hands of the PMCs in Freeside. The PMCs are soon trained to be at, if not higher than the level of NCR soldiers. Either way, the superior loadouts of combat armor and energy weapons will supplement lack of skill. The trained mercs are deployed out to the front, and any free mercs are cycled in for the next batch of training. The trained PMCs are spread out between the settlements that have contracts with them, each settlement being allocated 2 or 3 PMCs for protection, enough to defend against any bandits or mutants, but not enough to eliminate their threat, ensuring the cow can be milked again and again. The caps start flowing in from the settlements, but the small farming villages aren't exactly rich, and the cost of the mercenaries plus the training means House is barely breaking even, and that's including the revenue from the strip. It may be time for some more cutthroat tactics. House's PMCs begin offering positions in the company to all the mercenaries in Vegas, and either refuse, seem to disappear for a few hours, then turn up in an alley bloody and bruised. It's not too long before most mercs are part of the company and the rest are too injured to continue their line of work. So the only choice anyone has when looking for a hired gun is the company PMCs. This move dips deep into House's pockets, but it's worth it to build up his own private army, and the payday will soon come. Just as he predicted, the NCR soon comes to the company offering a contract for them to deal with the legionaries past the NCR perimeter. Even when most of the Legion army is off north hunting, small raiding parties are still trying to strike the forwardmost NCR bases, of which are exclusively immovable assets such as Helios 1 that can't be relocated further back. The facilities themselves have sufficient enough defenses, but going after the legionaries will be risky, and with the NCR's limited troops, there's no one to reinforce these installations if the defenders go on the attack. Yet if they do nothing about the legionaries, they'll eventually wear down the defenses anyway, so the NCR hires the PMCs to go forward and exterminate the threat. The moderately trained, well-armed mercenaries move in and assault the Legion encampments, effectively managing to take out the legionaries with minimal losses, giving House hope that he'll have proper protection against the coming storm. With the success the PMCs have shown, contracts begin coming in from all over, ranging from caravan protection to assaulting any Legion outposts that pop up near NCR territory. For a few weeks, the tides seem to be working in House's, and by proxy, the NCR's favour. But then it happens, and the news spreads like wildfire. Caesar, son of Mars, ruthless leader of the Legion, has died. The Legion falls into disorder at the highest level as the commanders squabble over power in the vacuum of leadership, but it's not long before the victor is decided. Legate Lanius, the monster of the East. With just his sheer presence he brings the bickering to an end. So the monster becomes king, and thus the Legion has their new Caesar. It's immediately clear this Caesar is far different from the previous. Caesar's first orders are to abandon the unsuccessful efforts to hunt down the dead horses and Sorrow's tribes. The prize that his army will instead chase is much more useful to the Legion. The army of the East will head to the Great Salt Lake and bring the tribes to their knees, enslave the strong and kill the weak. The trek to the Great Salt Lake is long, and the campaign even longer, but Caesar's will is unbreakable and his sword even more so. With his brutal leadership during the campaign, the Legion sweeps through the tribes of the region, The Whitelegs are met with crucifixion for their failure in Zion, and the rest of the tribes are besieged for 30 days and 30 nights. The survivors afterwards are offered quarter. Join the Legion or join the rest of their tribe in the afterlife. The Legion marches on from the Great Salt Lake larger than when they entered, taking 5 more tribes under their banner and leaving 3 in the ground. Although yet unknown to House and the NCR, the Legion isn't just marching away from a victory, they're also marching towards their next battle. Only when the Legion is 3 days' walk away from Hoover Dam do the NCR scouts spot them. To many it felt too soon. The truth is, however, no amount of time would have been enough to prepare for the crashing down of the Legion's hammer on the Mojave. The Legion advance is as inevitable as the tide coming in, consuming and covering everything underneath. The NCR desperately tries to prepare for what's coming, to be the rock against the tide, moving what little free troops they have left to Hoover Dam and preparing evacuation routes in the event of the defeat. House also sends over a small contingent of PMCs. So the pieces are in play. The armies of the West and the army of the East converge, all seeking to control the region for their own, but only one can rule. The Legion's assault comes down hard and fast. A sea of legionaries assault the dam, straining its defenses. The defenders mow down waves of them with automatic weapons, but like the immortals of old, for every one dead another takes his place. An unending barrage of soldiers. The ferocity and reckless abandon of the legionaries running directly into the gunfire quickly pushes the defenders back, and the dominoes begin to fall. The fallback of the defenders creates an opening in the defenses, and the legionaries flood the dam like a plague, spreading everywhere and killing everyone. The tables of the battle have tipped, and it's clear the NCR now has to focus on covering their retreat. The defenders start falling back en masse. House's PMCs are some of the first to flee, while the NCR Rangers stand as a wall against the onslaught of the Legion, giving everything they have to allow the retreating forces every precious minute they can gain. The retreating NCR sweep through the eastmost outposts like a wave, pushing everyone towards Vegas, while Chief Hanlon stays at his outpost to face the Legion and meet the same fate as Oliver. But this isn't the only place the NCR is finding trouble. The Great Khans are attacking NCR bases west of Vegas, the Fiends are attacking McCarran, the Omuertas family have started a rebellion on the Strip, and the Brotherhood of Steel, what the hell are they doing here? They've started assaulting Helios 1. It's chaos and the NCR is in the middle of it. Once the retreating soldiers arrive at Vegas to assist the forces already there, the tide quickly turns. The Omuertas and the Fiends are promptly dealt with when faced with overwhelming force. The Khans take longer and cost more lives, but in the end they fall like all the rest. The Brotherhood, however, proves too much for the far-spread NCR forces and are left to take Helios 1 while the NCR focuses on more pressing matters. With no more distractions, the NCR army, the PMCs, and the Securitrons all assume their defensive positions, preparing for the battle that will soon come. After all, Hoover Dam is only a logistical victory, a tool for any army of a growing nation. It's tangible. Vegas is much more. It's not just some tool of purpose, it's a crown of right, a weapon of cause. While Hoover Dam is a marvel, its purpose can be fulfilled by other means, or ignored. The Legion will walk right over it without a second thought, completely oblivious to its power. Vegas is one and only, the largest city still standing in the West and most likely the world, or at least what's left of it. It's a beacon of light in the middle of the wasteland, a crown to expansionist empires looking to claim the throne. To earn the crown through blood would cast away any doubt of right to rule. House predicted as much, that the myth of Vegas would draw the final battle inside its walls. It had to. All his cards were on the table already. Alas, he had miscalculated. So very, very much. All the people of the region believed the NCR would fight for Vegas. Even the NCR soldiers believed they would, as they kept setting up their defenses for the Legion. But all of them. Every single one. They all underestimated the leadership of the NCR. All the way up through the mire of bureaucracy, greed and nepotism, where everything was only seen for its physical value, where the extreme of American materialism had resurged to depose any belief more than such. The belief in the coin had buried the belief in God or any power greater than man long ago, but it was especially true for the boiling pot of narcissistic, power-hungry politicians. Whether they wore a suit or a uniform, they didn't think they needed a crown because they were already kings. Everything was theirs by birthright. Nothing held more value than value itself: money. The sheer cost of the Mojave campaign is bleeding the NCR dry, and enough is enough. The only thing of value in the Mojave has been lost, along with hundreds of troops and the two most influential NCR military leaders. Clearly they'll have to wait until the weather improves. Until then, there's plenty of other directions to expand. So the orders come down from the top: leave, go home, abandon the campaign. And just like that, the NCR turns its head west and walks away from its greatest failure, with House cursing them all the way. While it took the NCR years to take all the territory they held, by the next day the furthest reach they have is the Mojave outpost, and that is fast disappearing. Simultaneously, the Legion marches on Vegas. House has scrambled all the power he can muster, preparing to fight to the death with the Legion. Hot off the victory at Hoover Dam, the Legion initially are overconfident in their attack of the city and charge in, only to be ambushed by swaths of PMCs and Securitrons. The first wave of legionaries is cut into and taken down quickly. Caesar isn't about to lose after this much effort to get here. He orders the legionaries to pull back and surround the city, then to slowly enter and sweep the city from every entrance. The legionaries come in as water seeping into a sinking boat, slowly but surely. The PMCs and the Securitrons put up a good defense, but with the overwhelming numbers and the methodical movements of the legionaries sifting through every corner, House's forces are continually pushed back. Eventually, with the legions advance into the city, some of the citizens begin assaulting the legionaries too. They'll have to fight for every inch of the city. Despite the people of Vegas and the PMCs not having any higher allegiance, not having any true loyalty, they fight with such ferocity that they could be mistaken for zealots of House. Perhaps they realize that there's no further they can run. The Legion has trapped them and are about to learn how a cornered animal fights to survive. The Legion continues to swarm the city's defenders, pushing them inwards, paying in blood for every step further. The numbers may be lower, but the PMCs and Securitrons are much tougher foes than the regular NCR troopers. As the fighting continues into nightfall, the Legion finally wrestles control of the city from its defenders all the way back to the Strip, where they'll make one final push to wipe them out completely. The Legion forces rally against the walls, battering them until they all fly open at once and flooding into the Strip in a horde of biblical proportions. The defenders give it their all, laying unending volleys of fire into the all-consuming horde, but it's of little use. The number of legionaries is simply too great, and the defenders have nowhere left to run. To their credit, they defend the last of the city valiantly, given that they are merely hired guns and robots. Though perhaps it's the knowledge of the brutality of the Legion and their distinct lack of mercy that caused these mercenaries to fight so hard. At some point during the battle, when it becomes clear to the mercenaries they're already dead and there really is no way out, the clarity of knowing they're about to die, it emboldens them even more. No longer moving ever backward from the Legion's advance, they charge forward with reckless abandon, attacking with no purpose other than to take as many enemies with them to the afterlife. It's an equal opposing force the Legion did not expect. Before the last of the defenders finally fall, they manage to take out an incredible chunk of the Legion's fighting force. And with only one enemy left, the Legion storms the Lucky 38, climbing to the peak and executing Mr. House. After years of fighting, thousands dead and a land on fire, the Legion finally holds control over the Mojave. Though the victory was Pyrrhic in nature, thanks to the Legion's brutal bloodlust, it kept them from having the discipline to hold back and wait out their enemies. Their pride and lust for battle made it irresistible to storm the great city and show their might. The Legion lost so many with their assault, it's quite possible had the NCR devoted troops to the city's defense, that the Legion may have been stopped then and there. But the NCR's focus is, and will always be, on its own survival. No matter what it was built on, what it was meant to be, good intentions have become greed. Selflessness will always be abused and controlled by the selfish, whether they believe themselves to be so or not. Since their defeat, the NCR has retreated all the way back to California, and is falling ever more into the well of zealous militarism. With the loss of not only their president, but Chief Hanlon and General Oliver, factions have formed in the government over whether the Mojave campaign was worth it at all. While Hanlon's bravery and sacrifice was honourable, Kimball and Oliver both died for their cause too. In the end, with Kimball's vice president now holding office, his influence shifts the favour towards the pro-annexation faction, peddling the narrative that it was not the annexation that was at fault, but the lack of commitment to it. The attempt to peacefully civilize a barbaric wasteland that was the impossible part, the Legion standing as a testament to this. This belief allows alarmist policies designed to protect safety against the perceived enemy at the gates to be passed. The military is given more power and anti-Legion hysteria akin to old world McCarthyism runs rampant. Some small expansions to the north and south are increased in priority since the failure of the Mojave annexation, but the majority of resources are devoted to preparing for defense and eventual attack against an enemy that seeks to see nothing but their complete ruin. This enemy may have just conquered the Mojave, but Caesar is not content with his cradle of power. Unlike his predecessor, he does not see Vegas as the Legion's Rome, but merely another trophy on his wall, another crucible that his strength was proven in. Caesar's greed for battle will give the Legion nothing but pain and leave nothing but havoc in his wake. Nothing is enough for him. He could conquer the world and he wouldn't be satisfied with the amount of blood he spilled. But therein lies the problem. Caesar can conquer anything, but holding it is the real test of power. The mighty NCR that had united all of New California was chewed up and spit out by the Mojave, and the Legion is about to learn why. The Legion may have taken control of the region, in a sense, but they still need to eliminate any enemies that remain in the area and gain a tighter grip. Caesar starts by executing all of the followers of the apocalypse, seeing them as a taint on the legacy of his predecessor. In the following weeks, the Legion combs through every town and every settlement to make themselves known as the dominant force, killing all the remaining powder gangers and other raiders in the process. Many resist their rule, and many end up crucified for all to see. The Legion grows overconfident, putting down these common townsfolk, believing that cleansing the entire Mojave would be this easy. They soon come up against the bigger players of the region, and their confidence plummets. The boomers are the first to be targeted. Hiding out in the old Air Force base near the city, they're dug in well. This is where Caesar begins to show his weakness. Though an excellent military leader, his power comes from his aggression and his proficiency in battle. Where he falters is governing. Everything he learned in Colorado about conquest and about supplying his army is from the perspective of a general, not an emperor. Caesar does manage to take out the boomers, but with heavy losses to his own troops. Normally this would constitute more assimilation of the local people, but there are none. There's no more tribals left, and the rural townsfolk are only fit to be slaves. There's no tribals left for hundreds of miles, and the situation isn't any better with any of the other resources. The Mojave is a useless stretch of wasteland by all accounts. Food and water is rare in the unforgiving desert, and as the Legion pushes further and further outwards, new routes have to be created, more transport has to be used until the area is self-sufficient. The problem that arises, however, is the establishment of them. Caesar understands the importance of logistics, but he himself is poorly versed in taking advantage of them, like a man dying of thirst with no knowledge of how to find any water. His former master was the enlightened one, an expert in governing and well-read in the necessities of it. The old Caesar was the one who organized everything from farmland to trade routes. He passed some of his knowledge on, and some of it could be mimicked, yet it's merely a poor copy compared to what the original Caesar could create. He was the greatest mind they had, and without him they are lost. As the supply lines weaken and the Legion begins its slow descent into collapse, the Nightkin mutants that reside in the old ski lodge up the mountains begin to filter down into populated areas of the region, causing havoc and proving an incredible nuisance to the Legion. Rarely are even the best legionaries able to take down these monsters, and only with considerable losses in the process. To add to the Legion's woes, this distraction causes more rebellion from the local population, stretching the Legion's resources even thinner. Caesar is quickly growing tired of this stagnant ruling and orders all towns and settlements without useful resources to be burned down. Longing for battle over the menial management of the Legion's government, Caesar removes his sights from what he deems to be the lesser issues and sets his sights on the largest remaining enemy power in the Mojave, the Brotherhood of Steel. Unlike his predecessor, he is not too familiar with the Brotherhood of Steel. When the Legion encountered the Brotherhood last, the mal-paced legate still commanded its army. Caesar calls together the veteran centurions with battle experience against the Brotherhood. All of them recount how the Brotherhood is a strong military force that uses lightly armoured conscripts supported by small numbers of elite power armour units, and recommend he should draw out the full force with a frontal assault and then attack from behind and from range. So Caesar rallies his troops to assault the Brotherhood of Steel at Helios 1, although only once the battle has begun does Caesar realise the scope of the Brotherhood's power. When the Legion begins attacking, he expects to see the lower warriors rush out and be cut down by his legionaries, but to his surprise, the soldiers that flood out look the same as the ones standing guard. Never has he seen such well-trained soldiers before, able to eliminate an entire wave of legionaries in seconds. And their armour, it looks similar to the type the NCR used, but somehow different. The way they stand in it, it's more familiar to them, more imposing. Not only could it strike fear into the hearts of lesser men, but it seems almost unbreakable. It repeatedly shrugs off physical attacks from his troops, only showing any sort of weakness in the joints. After countless dead at the hands of the Brotherhood, the Legion finally begins advancing forward, targeting the weakened Brotherhood soldiers. As soon as the Brotherhood notices the tide of battle turning against them, they disappear from the area with such swiftness, it's almost as though they had done this before. Although Caesar is very well aware they retreated to Hidden Valley, he isn't about to make the same mistake that lost the Legion the first battle for the Dam. So Caesar lets the Brotherhood live, for now. But this endeavour isn't without its complications. The Legion reserves are dropping by the day, not helped by Caesar having the Centurions executed for their failure at Helios 1. Caesar's subordinates are becoming bolder and asserting their lack of faith in him more and more. Then there's Caesar himself. He's becoming complacent in his role, questioning why he does what he does. He never cared about the Legion. After all, he doesn't want conquest, he wants battle. He wants victory. From every angle, whether outside or inside, the Legion is threatened. Supply lines and infrastructure failing an overexpanded empire, power-hungry opportunists all vying for the throne, the king himself growing weary under the weight of the crown. Who knows what road the Legion will follow, but the secrets of the future are not ours to know. This is where the story ends, left to you to ponder the after. Unless, of course, you're intent on seeking forbidden knowledge, then merely continue into the unknown. But be warned, you may not like what you see. 5 years since the NCR lost the Dam. 5 years since the Legion consumed the Mojave and tried to forge it in its own image. For every day since then, the NCR has been watching the east like a hawk, guns at the ready waiting for their enemy to come. Yet nothing, not so much as a peep from the Legion. For the last half-decade, the priority for the NCR has been to prepare for invasion, militarizing it beyond return and dissolving the vestigial bureaucratic swamp that infested it for so long. The NCR is now an efficient, well-oiled machine, twice as powerful and even faster at taking action than it ever was before. The only price was the death of liberty, and the NCR is now strong enough to defend itself and wage any war that could be thrown at them. So it's time. Time to stop waiting for the enemy to come to them and take back what was lost. The NCR prepares an incredible fighting force, the greatest seen in centuries. With scouts far ahead, the NCR military starts moving east en masse. Strangely, the NCR scouts continue to report back no activity no matter how far east they tread. Eventually, the scouts arrive in the former combat zone of the Mojave, yet they still can't find the enemy. So the military moves in to establish a beachhead to find and eliminate the Legion. The NCR has been preparing for this for years, to finally destroy the Legion and wipe their taint from the landscape. And as the NCR military sets up the old Mojave outpost and charges into the region to fight the Legion, they are met with silence. Everywhere they turn, nothing but a dead, empty wasteland, with no trace of an empire that ruled over it. Nothing left but scattered settlements and the people that still inhabit the city of New Vegas, all of whom are now citizens of the NCR. Any who resist are dealt with swiftly and harshly. Gone are the days the NCR is civilized with the common filth of the wasteland, especially this filth, that showed nothing but contempt for the NCR 5 years prior. The NCR sweeps through the entire region in a matter of weeks, taking out the few mutants that remain, and discovering the region to be somehow picked clean of all high-grade tech. Eventually, after taking control of almost everything in the region, they stumble upon some small groups of tribals wielding remains of Legion gear. They are promptly wiped out by the NCR. Is this the last that remained of the mighty Caesar's Legion? Of that they cannot be certain, but what they can be certain of is their unrivaled power. With Hoover Dam once again being occupied, the entirety of the Mojave wasteland falls under the NCR's control. The first Caesar may not have created an empire that ruled for 1,000 years, but his influence on another is indisputable. Truly, this bastardized reactionary version of the NCR looks more closely related to the Legion than any of the founding principles the NCR was founded on. Caesar himself may have even been proud of this NCR, if it even can be called the New California Republic anymore. Either way, the future of the wasteland is once again uncertain.